The space station floated in the darkness between stars like a forgotten toy. It was old and nobody important ever came here. This was Reclamation Station 7, and it was where broken things went to die. Sat in the corner of her cell and tried to remember what hope felt like. She was and her people were known across the galaxy for their beautiful wings. The wings could glow with every color imaginable. They could dance with light and make patterns that brought tears to the eyes of those who watched. Rich and powerful aliens had paid fortunes to own to show them off at parties like living decorations. Wings hung limp against her back now. They were and dead. Her owner, a creature called Archon, had grown tired of her after only 3 years. When she had tried to refuse a performance, he had ordered his servants to hurt her wings. They had burned the special parts that made the light. They had taught her a lesson about disobedience. But the lesson had cost his prize. Without her light was worthless to him. So he had sent her here to the reclamation deck, where all the broken playthings ended up. She was not alone in the large room. There were others here, all of them damaged, all of them waiting for the end. The sat against the far wall. He was massive, almost 3 times the size of, with thick skin and small, angry eyes. His people were known for their great tusks, curved and beautiful and strong. But tusks had been filed down to ugly stumps. His owner had been afraid of them. A without tusks was like a bird without feathers. He had nothing left to be proud of. In the middle of the room, the twins huddled together. They were small and delicate, with silver skin and large dark eyes. Their people could sing with voices so beautiful that listeners would forget to breathe. But the twins had not sung in over a year. Their owner had found their music annoying and had punished them every time they made a sound. Now they were silent. They had forgotten how to use their gift. There were others too. A who had lost her arm, a whose color-changing scales had been permanently locked to a dull brown, a whose psychic abilities had been blocked by a cruel implant. 12 broken beings in total, all waiting in the room, all knowing what was coming. Processing, that was what the guards called it. Nobody spoke about what processing actually meant, but everyone knew. When you were processed, you stopped existing. Your body was broken down into basic materials and sold. Even in death, the broken playthings had value to someone. The door to the room opened with a hiss, and everyone looked up. It was unusual to get visitors here. The guards only came when it was time for processing. But this time they were not coming to take someone away. They were bringing someone new. The guards dragged a small cage into the room and dropped it on the floor with a loud clang. Inside the cage was the smallest creature had ever seen. It had brown skin and black hair and 2 small hands that gripped the bars of its prison. It was wearing torn and dirty clothes, and there were old scars on its arms and face. It was a human, had heard of them but had never seen one before. They came from a small planet on the edge of explored space, a primitive world that had not yet made contact with the greater galaxy. Some collectors found them interesting because they were so rare and so strange. This human was a child, a young male, probably not yet fully grown by the standards of his species. One of the guards kicked the cage. "This one's defective," he said with a laugh. "Been through 7 owners in 2 years. Nobody wants it anymore." The other guard pulled out a device and tapped at it. "The file says it's violent, bit off the tendril of a slaver, destroyed a priceless crystal worth more than this whole station, keeps trying to escape." He shook his head. "Stupid creature, doesn't know its place." The first guard leaned down and looked at the human child. "No one wants damaged goods, little thing. You're garbage now, just like the rest of them." The human child stared back at the guard with dark brown eyes. There was no fear in those eyes. There was only anger, burning like a small hot fire. The guards opened the cage and pulled the child out roughly. They threw him onto the floor and laughed when he stumbled. Then they left, and the door closed behind them with a final sound. For a long moment, nobody moved. The broken plaything stared at the small human. The The small human stared back at them. Then the child did something unexpected. He stood up straight, brushed the dirt from his torn clothes, and looked around the room. He studied each of them carefully, one by one, like he was counting them, like he was remembering their faces. When he spoke, his voice was rough and damaged, like he had spent too much time screaming. But the words were clear, and they were in his own language. "They're going to kill us, aren't they?" Felt her dead wings twitch. It was the first movement they had made in months. This tiny creature, this broken human child, had learned her language. How? Why? "You speak our words," she said softly. The child nodded. "I speak lots of languages. 7 owners means 7 different species. I learned how to understand them." His jaw tightened. "I also learned how to curse at them." Despite everything, felt something strange stir in her chest. It might have been curiosity. It might have been the ghost of a smile. Spoke from across the room. His voice was flat and tired. "Yes, small thing, they will kill us. This is the end of the line. This is where playthings go when no one wants to play with them anymore." The human child turned to look at the massive. He did not seem afraid of size or his angry eyes. He seemed to be thinking very hard about something. "What is your name?" the child asked in rough but understandable. The seemed surprised by the question. No one had asked his name in a very long time. "What is yours?" The child straightened his small shoulders. In that moment, despite his size, despite his scars, despite everything that had been done to him, he looked almost proud. "My name is," he said, "and I'm not going to let them kill us." The broken playthings stared at the tiny human child. They had all given up hope long ago. They had all accepted their fate. But this small creature, this damaged and discarded thing, stood in front of them with fire in his eyes and spoke of survival like it was actually possible. Did not believe him. None of them believed him. But for the first time in a very long time, she wanted to. Was 11 years old, and he had been stolen from Earth 2 years ago. He remembered that night very clearly. He had been walking home from his grandmother's house. The stars had been bright and beautiful above him. Then there had been a light, brighter than anything he had ever seen, and hands that were not hands grabbing him, pulling him up into the sky. He had woken up in a cage on a ship full of strange creatures. There had been other humans there too, crying and screaming and begging for help. But help never came. They were all sold, one by one, to different buyers across the galaxy. Never saw any of them again. His first owner had been a creature made of thick tentacles and too many eyes. They had wanted a human pet, something exotic and rare to show off to its friends, but had not wanted to be a pet. When they had tried to put a collar on him, had bitten through one of its tentacles. They had sold him immediately at a loss. His second owner had been a noble, a tall, thin being with skin like polished crystal. They had treated like a decoration, keeping him in a glass room and making him stand still for hours while guests looked at him. When got tired of standing, he had grabbed the most expensive crystal in the room and thrown it at his owner's head. They had been furious, but also afraid. It had sold to a dealer who specialized in difficult merchandise. And so it went. Owner after owner, cage after cage, planet after planet. Some of them had been cruel. Some of them had been kind in their way, but none of them had seen as a person. To all of them, he was just a thing, a toy, a curiosity. Had fought back every single time. He had screamed until his voice broke. He had bitten and scratched and kicked. He had learned languages not to please his owners, but to insult them in words they could understand. He had made himself as difficult as possible, hoping that eventually someone would just let him go. But no one ever let him go. They just passed him along to the next owner, like a broken machine that someone else might want to fix. Now he was here in this room with these broken creatures, waiting to be killed. And for the first time since he had been taken from Earth, felt something other than anger. He felt a strange kind of connection. These beings around him, they were not like his owners. They were not cruel or cold or uncaring. They were victims just like him. They had been used and hurt and thrown away. They had been told they were worthless. Looked at and her dead wings. He looked at and his filed-down tusks. He looked at the silent twins and the one-armed and all the other broken playthings in the room. He saw himself in all of them. In the days that followed, did something that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of fighting, instead of screaming, instead of looking for a way to escape, he started talking. He talked to first because he knew her language best. He asked her about her wings, about how they worked, about what had been done to them. At first, she did not want to answer. She did not want to remember, but was patient. He kept asking, kept listening, kept caring. The light comes from special organs in the wing membrane, explained finally, her voice barely above a whisper. They are controlled by nerves that run from my spine. When they burned me, they damaged those nerves. The organs are still there, but my body has forgotten how to talk to them. Thought about this for a long time. He remembered his grandmother, who had been a doctor back on Earth. She used to tell him stories about the human body, about how it could heal itself in amazing ways if given the chance. "Can nerves heal?" he asked. Shook her head. "The damage is too old, too deep. I have accepted this." "I haven't," said. He started working on her wings that very day. He had no tools, no medicine, no training. All he had was determination and the memories of his grandmother's stories. He used scraps from food containers to make simple massage tools. He asked question after question about bodies, about how they moved, about what made them feel good or bad. Then he got to work. The other broken playthings watched with confusion. What was this tiny human doing? Why was he wasting his time on something so hopeless? They would all be dead soon anyway. What was the point? But did not stop. Day after day he worked on wings. He massaged the tissue. He guided her through exercises that she thought were pointless. He talked to her constantly, forcing her to respond, forcing her to think about something other than death. "You are wasting your effort," she told him after the first week. "This will not work." "Maybe," agreed, "but I'm going to try anyway." On the 10th day, something happened. Was lying on her stomach while worked on the muscles around her wing base. She was tired and sad and ready to tell him to stop. Then she felt something strange. A tingle, like electricity, running down her left wing. She gasped. Leaned back. What happened? Could not speak. She was staring at her left wing. It was glowing. Just barely, just for a moment, a faint flicker of pale blue light, but it was there. It was real. For the first time in years, her wing had made light. Saw it happen. The big had been watching from across the room, pretending not to care. But when he saw that tiny flicker of blue, something inside him broke open. He laughed. It was a rusty, awkward sound. Had not laughed since before his tusks were taken. But seeing that small light, seeing the impossible happen right in front of his eyes, he could not help himself. The twins looked up from their corner. Their dark eyes were wide. One of them made a soft humming sound, the first sound either of them had made in over a year. Looked around the room at all the broken playthings. He saw something in their eyes that had not been there before, something small and fragile and dangerous. "Hope." "Okay," he said quietly. "Who's next?" The days turned into weeks, and the room began to change. It started slowly, so slowly that the guards who brought food did not notice at first. But the broken playthings noticed. They felt it in their bones, in their hearts, in parts of themselves they had thought were dead forever. Worked on every single day. The flickers of light in her wings grew stronger, first pale blue, then soft purple, then hints of gold and green. The colors were not steady yet. They came and went like shy animals learning to trust again. But they were there. They were real. And it was not just her wings that were healing. It was her spirit. "Tell me about your home," said one evening, as he massaged the muscles along her wing edge. Was quiet for a moment. She had not thought about home in a very long time. Thinking about home had hurt too much. There are great forests, she said finally. Trees that grow so tall they touch the clouds. At night, my people fly among the branches, and we light up the darkness with our wings. It is like having 1,000 living stars all around you. That sounds beautiful, said. It was. His voice was soft and sad. I do not think I will ever see it again. Maybe not, agreed. He never lied to make people feel better. But that doesn't mean you can't carry it with you. The forest is inside you, they can't take that away. The twins were his next project. Their problem was different from his. Their voices were not physically damaged. They had simply been so afraid to use them that they had forgotten how. Every time they had sung, they had been punished. Pain and song had become connected in their minds. Could not massage away that kind of damage, so he tried something else. He sang. Had never been a good singer, even back on Earth. His voice was rough and scratchy from all the screaming he had done. But he sang anyway, because he remembered songs his grandmother used to sing, and because he thought the twins might like the sound of something other than silence. He sang old Earth songs about rivers and mountains and love and loss. He sang children's songs about animals and counting and silly adventures. He sang badly and loudly and without shame. The twins stared at him like he had lost his mind. That is not harmonically correct, one of them said finally. It was the first complete sentence either twin had spoken in over a year. I know, said cheerfully. Can you teach me how to do it right? And that was the trick. By asking them to teach him, made them use their voices again. They started with small corrections, just little sounds to show him where he was going wrong. But those small sounds grew into phrases, and phrases grew into melodies, and melodies grew into something that made everyone in the room stop and listen. The twins were singing again. It was not the confident, powerful singing they had done before their capture. It was fragile and tentative, like a flower pushing through cracked stone. But it was beautiful. It was alive. Was the hardest. The big watched everything did with the others. He saw his wings grow brighter. He heard the twins find their voices. But he did not ask for help, and he did not expect any. You cannot fix what was done to me, he told one day. My tusks are gone. They will not grow back. This is permanent. Sat down next to the massive creature. Next to, he looked like a tiny insect beside a mountain. You're right, said. I can't give you new tusks, but can I ask you something? Grunted, it might have been a yes. What did your tusks mean to you? Why were they so important? There was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotions he had not felt in years. My tusks showed my strength, my honor, my place in the world. When a meets another, we touch tusks in greeting. It is how we recognize each other as equals. He looked down at his hands, which were large enough to crush without effort. Without tusks, I am nothing. I am invisible to my own people. That's stupid, said. His head snapped up. No one spoke to her that way, even a broken one. What did you say? I said that's stupid. Did not flinch from the anger in his eyes. Your tusks were just bones. They were things that grew out of your body. They didn't make you strong or honorable. You did that, you. He pointed at his chest. Your strength is in here. Your honor is in here. Some alien filed down your tusks and you think that means you lost yourself. That's letting them win. That's giving them power over you that they don't deserve. Stared at the tiny human. The anger in his eyes flickered, then faded, replaced by something else. Something like wonder. You are very strange, the said finally. I've been told that before, admitted. Was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached out one massive hand and placed it gently on shoulder. Teach me, he said. And did. He worked with everyone in the room, each according to their needs. The who had lost her arm learned to balance again, to move with grace and confidence. The whose scales were stuck on Brown learned to accept his new appearance and find beauty in consistency. The whose psychic powers were blocked learned that there was more to connection than reading minds. Not everyone healed completely. Some damage really was permanent, but helped them all see that damage did not mean worthless, that broken did not mean finished. One night, when the lights in the room were dim and most of the others were sleeping, asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why do you do this?" she whispered. "Why do you care about us so much?" Was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was smaller than she had ever heard it. "Because I'm broken too," he said. "They took me from my home. They passed me around like a toy. They hurt me and scared me and told me I was nothing. And I believed them for a while. I thought I was worthless because no one wanted me." He looked up with his dark eyes, and she saw the pain there, deep and old and heavy. "But then I realized something. My grandmother used to say that broken things can be fixed, that damage doesn't mean the end. And if that's true for me, then it's true for you too, for all of you." He smiled, and it was a sad and beautiful thing. "I guess I just don't want anyone else to feel as alone as I did." Felt tears running down her face. She had not cried in years. She had thought that part of her was dead too, but had proven her wrong about many things. She spread her wings, and they glowed with soft, steady light. Not as bright as before, maybe never as bright as before, but real and present and alive. "You are not alone," she told him, "not anymore." The room was still a prison. They were still waiting for death, but something had changed, something important. They were no longer just broken playthings waiting to be thrown away. They were a family, and families protect each other. Station Commander was having a bad day. He was a species known for their love of order and efficiency. Everything on his station ran on schedules. Supplies came in on schedule. Waste went out on schedule. And the defective merchandise on the reclamation deck was processed on schedule. But today, his perfect schedule was broken. "What do you mean? Something is wrong with the reclamation subjects?" demanded, his 3 eyes narrowing in annoyance. The guard in front of him was nervous. He was a young, barely out of training, and he had never seen the commander this upset. "Sir, the subjects are different," the guard said carefully. "They are moving around, talking to each other. Some of them are even laughing, and her wings are glowing again." Felt a cold shiver run down his spine. This was not supposed to happen. The reclamation subjects were supposed to sit quietly and wait for processing. They were supposed to be broken, defeated, empty. That was why they were here. "Show me," he commanded. The guard led him to a viewing screen that looked into the room. What saw made his blood run cold. The room had been transformed. The broken playthings were not huddled in corners anymore. They were gathered in groups, talking and moving and alive in ways they should not be. The swings flickered with soft-colored light. The twins were humming together, their voices blending in eerie harmony. The massive was standing tall, his posture proud despite his ruined tusks. And in the center of it all was the human child. The tiny creature was talking to helping her practice walking with her one arm extended for balance. He was smiling. They were all smiling. "Who authorized this?" demanded. "Who gave them permission to recover?" "No one, sir," the guard said. "It just happened. The human started it. He has been working with them for weeks, talking to them, teaching them things, making them believe they are worth something." Stared at the screen. His mind was racing with calculations and consequences. If word got out that defective merchandise could be repaired, the whole reclamation system would fall apart. Owners would start demanding refunds instead of accepting write-offs. The organic recycling facilities would lose their supply. The economic ripple effects would be enormous. More than that, if these creatures started thinking they were worth something, they might start acting like it. They might resist. They might fight back. They might give other merchandise ideas. This could not be allowed. Dispose of them, said. His voice was cold and final. All of them immediately. The guard hesitated. Sir, the processing schedule. Forget the schedule. Do it now, before this spreads. Watched the screen for a moment longer. The human child was laughing at something they had said. Such a small creature, such a large problem. He should have been processed months ago. The guards entered the room with weapons drawn and cruelty in their hearts. They expected what they always found on the reclamation deck: weak and broken creatures too defeated to resist. Easy targets, simple work. They were wrong. Moved first. The Massive had been watching the door. When the guards came through, he was already on his feet, already positioned between them and the others. His tusks were still ruined, but his body was strong and his spirit was stronger. You will not touch them, he said. His voice echoed through the room like thunder. The lead guard laughed. Step aside, one, this doesn't concern you. Everything that happens in this room concerns me, replied. These are my family, and you will not hurt my family. The guard raised his weapon. Last warning, defective, move or be moved. Smiled, it was not a friendly smile. Make me. What happened next was chaos. Spread her wings and they blazed with light, not the soft entertainment glow she had been known for, but something fierce and blinding. The colors strobed in rapid patterns that made the guards stumble and cover their eyes. They had never seen her use her light as a weapon before. The twins began to sing, and their song was not beautiful. It was sharp and discordant, frequencies designed to disrupt and disorient. The guards' communication devices squealed and sparked. Their weapon systems flickered. The swung her remaining arm in a wide arc, knocking one guard off his feet. The used his body as a shield, his tough scales absorbing weapon fire. The though blocked from reading minds, used her body to tackle a guard at the knees. And through it all moved. The small human was quick and clever and knew exactly where to be. He had spent 2 years learning the weaknesses of alien species, learning how to hurt them when they tried to hurt him. Now he used that knowledge to protect his family. He kicked out a guard's knee joint. He threw a piece of debris at a weapon hand. He dodged and ducked and created distractions that let the others fight more effectively. In less than 2 minutes, all 5 guards were on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were just in too much pain to move. None of them had expected this. None of them had prepared for broken playthings that refused to stay broken. Stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard. The others gathered around him, battered but alive, scared but proud. That was only the first wave, said grimly. More will come. I know, said. He looked at the door, thinking hard. We can't fight our way off this station. There are too many of them and not enough of us. Then what do we do? Asked. Her wings were still glowing but dimmer now, tired from the effort. Was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, and it was a different kind of smile than any of them had seen before. It was the smile of someone with a plan. We don't fight them with our bodies, he said. We fight them with our words. He pointed at one of the fallen guards, at the communication device on his belt. Every ship in the Sovereignty has communication networks. Every station can send messages to other stations. This place is connected to the whole galaxy. He picked up the device and looked at it. It was alien technology, but he had learned a lot about alien technology in 2 years. The Sovereignty keeps us as playthings because they think we're worth less than them. They throw us away because they think we're garbage. But what if everyone saw what we really are? What if every owned creature in the galaxy heard our story? Understood, her eyes went wide. You want to broadcast a message. I want to broadcast the truth, said. I want every being who has ever been collected, every creature who has ever been told they were worthless to know that they're wrong. That we're all wrong to believe them. That broken doesn't mean finished. He looked around at his family, at with her but glowing wings, at with his missing tusks and mountain-strong spirit, at the twins who had found their voices again, at every single being who had been thrown away and then found something to live for. "Will you help me?" he asked. Laughed again. It was becoming easier for him. "Little human, after what you have done for us, I would follow you into a star." The others nodded. They were tired and hurt and scared, but they were also together. They were also alive in ways they had not been for years. "Then let's get to work," said. "We have a galaxy to wake up." Outside the room, Commander was assembling a larger force. He was calling in reinforcements from other decks. He was preparing for war. He did not know that he had already lost. Because the battle was not about weapons and guards and space stations. It was about ideas. It was about hope. And you cannot kill an idea with a gun. The message went out at midnight, station time. And his family had worked for hours on the broadcast. They had figured out how to use the guards' equipment. They had tapped into the station's communication arrays. They had found a way to send their words to every corner of the sovereignty's network. And then spoke. His voice was rough and damaged. He was small and young and scared. But he spoke anyway because some things needed to be said. "My name is, I am a human from the planet Earth. 2 years ago I was stolen from my home and sold as a pet. I have had 7 owners. I have been called defective, damaged, worthless. I was sent to a reclamation station to be killed because nobody wanted me anymore. But I am not worthless, and neither are the beings I am with. We are and human. We have been hurt and broken and thrown away, but we are still here. We are still alive. We still matter. The sovereignty calls us playthings. They collect us like objects and discard us when we stop being fun. They tell us we have no value because we are not like them. But they are wrong. Every creature in this galaxy has value. Every being deserves to be treated with dignity. We are not toys. We are not merchandise. We are people. If you are hearing this message and you have been told you are worthless, I want you to know the truth. You are not. Your damage does not define you. Your pain does not own you. You are more than what they have made you. Stand up, speak out, refuse to be silent, because the only way they win is if we believe them, and we don't have to believe them anymore." The message ended. For a long moment there was only silence. Then the responses began. They came from everywhere, from menageries on wealthy worlds, from servant quarters in noble houses, from cages on transport ships, from holding cells and auction floors and 1,000 other places where owned creatures lived and suffered in silence. The responses were small at first, just whispers, just questions, but whispers can grow into conversations, and conversations can grow into movements, and movements can change the galaxy. On Station 7, Commander finally got the door open. He came through with 50 armed soldiers, expecting to find the broken playthings cowering or fighting or dead. Instead, he found them standing in a circle, holding hands, their faces calm and unafraid. In the center stood, 11 years old, small and damaged and utterly unbroken. "It's too late," the boy said. "The message went out, everyone heard it, everyone." 3 eyes blinked rapidly. He checked his communication device and saw the reports coming in. The message had been received on over 100,000 worlds. It was spreading faster than any broadcast in sovereignty history. He looked at the small human and felt something he had never felt before. Fear. "Kill them," he ordered, but his voice was uncertain and his soldiers hesitated. "You can kill us," said quietly, "but it won't matter. The idea is already out there. The truth is already spreading. Other beings like us are already starting to believe that they're worth something. You can't stop that. No one can stop that." Stepped forward, her wings blazing with light. "We are not your playthings anymore," she said. "We never were. You just convinced us to believe we were." Rumbled in agreement. The small human taught us the truth, and the truth cannot be killed by guns. The soldiers looked at their commander. They looked at the broken playthings who no longer looked broken. They looked at the small human child who had somehow changed everything. One by one, they lowered their weapons. The years that followed were not easy. Change never is. The sovereignty did not collapse overnight. The menageries did not empty in a day. There was resistance and pushback and violence. Many beings who spoke out were punished. Many uprisings were put down. But the idea survived. The truth kept spreading. On world after world, owned creatures began to refuse. They stopped performing. They started speaking. They looked their owners in the eye and said the words had taught them, "I am not a thing." Some owners responded with cruelty, but others, surprised by the sudden humanity in eyes they had always ignored, began to question themselves. Not all change comes from revolution. Some comes from recognition. Within a decade, the menagerie system began to crumble. It was not destroyed by war or conquest. It was destroyed by emptiness. When no one wanted to own beings anymore, when the idea of collection became shameful instead of prestigious, the whole system simply faded away. Became something strange and new in the galaxy. Not a conqueror or a warrior or a king, just a teacher. He traveled from world to world, never staying long, always moving on to wherever he was needed. He found beings who were broken and helped them see that they could heal. He found communities that were wounded and showed them how to come together. He did not give speeches to great crowds or lead armies to victory. He just talked to people, one at a time, and helped them believe in themselves. Traveled with him for many years. Her wings never fully recovered their former glory, but they glowed with colors she had never produced before, colors that came from joy instead of performance, from freedom instead of command. She became his partner and his friend, and eventually his family in truth as well as spirit. Returned to his home world, where he was met with confusion by his people. A without tusks should have been invisible, worthless, forgotten, but stood tall and proud, and when others challenged him, he told them the story of a small human child who had taught him that strength came from within. In time, they began to reconsider what made a warrior. In time, they stopped measuring worth by tusks. The twins traveled together across the galaxy, singing songs that healed instead of entertained. Their music brought comfort to those who suffered and hope to those who despaired. They never forgot the rough, terrible human songs that had first unlocked their voices. And grew old. Humans do not live as long as many species in the galaxy. His body wore down from years of travel and work and care. His hair turned. His eyes grew dim, but his spirit never faded. He died peacefully on a small world at the edge of known space, surrounded by friends from a dozen species. His last words were two who had stayed with him to the end. "Was it enough?" he asked her. "Did we do enough?" Held his small, frail hand in hers. Her wings glowed soft and steady, all the colors of love and gratitude. "You saved us," she said, "all of us. You taught a galaxy that broken things can heal, that damaged creatures still have worth, that the discarded can rise again." She leaned down and pressed her forehead to his. It was enough, it was more than enough. He smiled and then he was gone. 2 centuries later, stood before a crowd of millions. Beings from every corner of the galaxy had gathered to mark the anniversary of the message, the broadcast that had started it all. The menageries were ancient history now. The idea of owning another sentient being was considered barbaric, a shameful chapter in the galaxy's past. The sovereignty had reformed itself into something new and different and better. And at the center of it all was the memory of a small human boy. "He was broken," said, her voice carrying across the vast assembly. "He was damaged and discarded and thrown away. They called him worthless. They sent him to die with the rest of us." Her wings spread wide, blazing with light brighter than they had ever been, colors that painted the sky and took the breath from millions of watchers. But he refused to believe them. He refused to let us believe them. He taught us that our damage was not our destiny, that our scars were proof of survival, not marks of shame, that the smallest and most broken among us can carry the greatest capacity to heal. She looked out at the crowd, at the descendants of beings had helped, at the species that now lived free because of him. "This is human," she said. "This is what they are. They are small and fragile and short-lived. They break easily, but they love fiercely. They hope stubbornly. They refuse to accept that anyone is beyond saving." She smiled, and in that smile was all the warmth of 2 centuries of memory. Remember him, remember what he taught us, and never, ever make the mistake of discarding one of them again. The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then slowly they began to sing. It was the song the twins had composed, the song that had become the anthem of the free. It was rough and imperfect, sung by voices that were never meant to harmonize. But it was beautiful. And somewhere, in whatever place spirits go when their work is done, a small human boy with rough hands and a damaged voice heard that song. And he smiled,